Every episode of Doctor Who is an ensemble effort, with various departments working to emphasise the ideas in the writer's script. And whether it's a costume choice that exemplifies a character trait, or a piece of set dressing that hints at what's really going on elsewhere in the Doctor Who universe, many of these extra flourishes are not at all easy to find. So don't blink. Blink and you might miss these details we're about to point out to you. I'm Ellie for Who Culture, here with 10 Doctor Who secrets that were hiding in plain sight. Number 10, there's a hidden Dalek language, Rose. Just as Rose Tyler scattered the words bad and wolf across time and space at the end of Series 1, so too did the Daleks send their own message using their own language. This was an in-joke by production designer Edward Thomas and his team, who seeded this graffiti into various sets and props in non-Dalek episodes. It can first be seen to the right of some mannequins in a store window in the opening moments of Rose, but strangest of all is that you can also see it in World War III when Jackie Tyler seeks refuge in Mickey's flat. In the bottom corner are two large red wooden objects that look like bits of a coffee table or an elaborate magazine rack, but actually they're designed to mimic the same Dalek graffiti glimpsed elsewhere in the series. This graffiti made one of its last appearances in a Radio Times photo shoot to promote Series 2 in 2006, a subtle nod to the fact that the Daleks would make a surprise return in the finale. Thomas has also claimed it can be found in most episodes of Series 1, so keep those eyes peeled. Number 9. Clara's stairlift is visible early on, Last Christmas. It's hard to know what's real and what's a dream in Last Christmas, which is presumably why we all miss the fact that there's a stairlift in Clara's house right at the beginning of the episode. Now, yes, Clara may have been spending Christmas Day with her gran, which could explain the stairlift. But wasn't Granny Oswald looking pretty sprightly when she was ogling a naked 11th Doctor the previous Christmas? While the stairlift isn't there during Clara's dream of Christmas with Danny, we can just assume that these are the circumstances of that particular dream. The stairlift at the beginning implies that this version of Clara's house is occupied by an elderly person. And of course, the ending confirms that it's owned by a much older version of Clara herself, who is visited by the 12th Doctor on what will be her last Christmas. It's a brilliant reveal that leads to a heartwarming scene between the Doctor and old Clara. But if you were paying extra close attention at the start of the episode, you could have guessed what was going to happen. Of course, it turns out that old Clara was also a dream, but this wasn't always the case. Last Christmas was once intended to be Jenna Coleman's final Doctor Who episode, and the ending would have been this scene between old Clara and the Doctor. However, Coleman signed on for one more series and didn't need that stairlift after all. Number 8. The War Doctor wears combat boots the day of the Doctor. Long coat, neckerchief, waistcoat. Despite what he may say to the contrary, John Hurt's costume in The Day of the Doctor really does scream, I am the Doctor. And from a behind-the-scenes perspective, there are two thoughtful additions that brilliantly play into the true nature of this forgotten incarnation. One is the bandolier previously worn by Cass in The Night of the Doctor, that the War Doctor wears across his chest as a reminder of the life he failed to save. Since at least the 15th century, bandoliers have been used by soldiers to carry ammunition. So for the War Doctor to also wear a bandolier, something so intrinsically linked to the field of combat, is a big sign that he is not your average incarnation. Less obvious are the boots that the War Doctor wears throughout the Day of the Doctor. These are actually combat boots, as clearly evidenced by the footprints he leaves in the red sand of the Gallifreyan wilderness. When the Doctor has worn boots in the past, they've been worn for style and comfort, such as David Tennant's iconic Converse. So to see the costume designers put in this much care truly helps sell the idea that this is a much different kind of Doctor than we've ever seen before. Number 7. The Rwandan proverb on 15 Sonic, the church on Ruby Road. Not every hidden detail in Doctor Who relates to the story. Sometimes they can relate to the actors themselves. For example, the 15th Doctor's sonic screwdriver has a particular detail that references Ncuti Gatwa's own life. As revealed by the man himself, the gold disc in the centre of the device is emblazoned with Gallifreyan symbols, which translates to an old Rwandan proverb reading, "The sharpness of the tongue defeats the sharpness of the warrior." It's an appropriate proverb to have engraved on the Doctor's sonic, because the gadget has come to symbolise Doctor Who's unique outlook. As Stephen Moffat famously observed, the Doctor has never been given a gun. They've been given a screwdriver to fix things. It's also appropriate because, more than any other hero, the Doctor loves to talk. They delight in belittling alien tyrants with a well-timed quip, or rattling off utter nonsense to distract foes from what they're really doing. So the sharpness of the Doctor's tongue has been defeating the sharpness of the warrior for over 60 years now. Number 6. The Doctor's speech is written on the wall, Heaven Sent. Heaven Sent is topped and tailed with two great Peter Capaldi speeches, and the first one can also be glimpsed in a blink-and-you'll-miss-it shot on the walls of the castle. At first glance, it appears as if someone at the locations used to film the episode forgot to obscure some tourist text, but on closer inspection, it's clear that this is in fact the 12th Doctor's opening monologue about death, and not some obscure information about Welsh castles. A deleted scene would have apparently shown the Doctor reading this speech from the wall, but this was changed so that it became an opening monologue instead. And considering how effective that opening is, this was no doubt the right move. Not to mention that the Doctor standing there reading from a wall wouldn't have been the most riveting scene, despite how incredible Peter Capaldi is as an actor. This can also be interpreted as the Doctor's confession dial decorating the castle with somber speeches and sentiments in an effort to wear the Doctor down. Although, from an interior design standpoint, I take "you begin your life and it begins a journey towards you" over "live, laugh, love" any day of the week. Number 5. The 8th and 2nd Doctors team up, the name of the Doctor. As well as revealing that the Great Intelligence was responsible for Dragonfire's bizarre cliffhanger, the name of the Doctor also gives us an insight into a hitherto unseen multi-Doctor story. When Clara is splintered across the Doctor's time stream, she meets many of his previous incarnations, including the 3rd and 1st Doctors. She also bumps into the 2nd Doctor mid-adventure, and right at the start of this scene, you may have also noticed a figure dart across the screen in front of her for a mere handful of frames. Upon closer inspection, this is revealed to be the 8th Doctor, whose blink-and-you'll-miss-it cameo indicates that he and the 2nd Doctor once went on some sort of joint mission together. Were they hunting down a rogue Pating, caught up in a meddling monk scheme? Who knows? Although a much bigger question than what brings the 2nd and 8th Doctors together is the wardrobe choice. Clara and the two Doctors are in a park lined with palm trees and a beach nearby. While it looks a little bit overcast, it surely can't be cold enough for the 2nd Doctor to don his fur coat. He must be roasting! Number 4. The Cyber-Brig is a cyber leader, death in heaven. We can argue all night about whether the Cyber-Brig was a tribute or an insult to the memory of Nicholas Courtney. However, at least the Doctor Who production team had the good grace to reflect the Brigadier's seniority even when cyberized. It's not immediately obvious, but the Cybermen in Darkwater and Death in Heaven also have cyber leaders, which are usually designated by their black head handles. But unlike previous models, these Series 8 Cybers don't have fully painted handles. Instead, it's just the corners of the handles that are black. It's subtle, but the black cornering is definitely there on a handful of the Cybermen in Darkwater and Death in Heaven, and the Cyber-Brig is one of them. Clearly, Missy or the cyber technology itself identified the Brigadier as a born leader with substantial military experience. Indeed, the Brigadier's mind is so strong that it's not just worthy of use as a cyber leader, it also completely breaks its programming to save both Kate Stewart and the 12th Doctor. While the concept of the Cyber-Brig is still pretty bleak, there's some small comfort in the fact that even after death, the Brigadier is still the boss and still looking out for those closest to him. Number 3. London Credit Bank, the Runaway Bride. When you want to buy a brand new home entertainment system in the Doctor Who universe, your first port of call is Magpie Electricals. However, if you need some extra credit for the purchase, then a lesser-known fictional brand has you covered. Just pop into your local branch of London Credit Bank. Because London Credit Bank has never been involved in a nefarious alien plot like Magpie Electricals in The Idiot's Lantern, that we know of at least. An evil banker wouldn't be a huge surprise though, would it? Its branding is easier to miss, however, although it consistently does appear throughout the first Russell T Davies era. It's first seen in The Runaway Bride, becoming the go-to financial institution in the Doctor Who universe. The 10th Doctor uses the Sonic on one of London Credit Bank's cash points to spew money out on Christmas Eve as a distraction to escape the robot Santas. A year later, in Voyage of the Damned, the prepaid credit card that Mr. Copper eventually uses to establish his foundation comes courtesy of London Credit Bank. The Doctor and Wilf also walk past a branch of London Credit Bank while entering the cafe in The End of Time, before Clyde Langer attempted to withdraw some money from one of its cash points, only to be stopped by the curse of Hetekumtek. Number 2. The Cybermen cameo in a painting, The Day of the Doctor. The Day of the Doctor features several paintings that are brought to life as the Zygons utilise 3D art to invade present-day Earth. The paintings themselves are stored in the National Gallery's Undergallery, curated by a future version of the Doctor. Another painting stored in the Undergallery is the Raft of the Medusa, but with a twist. This painting can be seen behind Clara while the 11th Doctor is trying on his latest fez, and it's not immediately clear that this isn't the version of the Raft of the Medusa that art scholars would recognise. That's because the real-life shipwrecked depicted in the painting is fully crewed by the Cybermen. Clearly there's an unseen celebrity historical in which the Doctor teams up with a French painter to halt a Cyberman invasion. It's a clever flourish by Doctor Who's production designers, given that hiding aliens inside paintings is the plot of the Day of the Doctor. As the three Doctors have to contend with Zygons and Daleks, it's a good job that the Cybermen didn't also join the party. But it's fitting that they did at least appear to celebrate the show's 50th anniversary. Number 1. That low-hanging plane is real, The Magician's Apprentice. Missy's plan in The Magician's Apprentice actually had some real-life inspiration that was implemented in the finished edit. In the episode, Missy freezes a number of passenger jets in order to get Unit's attention to negotiate a face-to-face meeting with Clara Oswald. One particular plane in the montage, seen at the 11:50 mark, depicts a blue and white jet hovering dangerously close to the ground, which you probably assumed was a complete fabrication, but it wasn't. This is in fact a real-life clip shot at Maho Beach in the Caribbean, where planes fly scarily low above the heads of beachgoers before landing on the airport's runway. Stephen Moffat specifically requested footage of Maho Beach in the script, saying that it was terrifying. Another unbelievable real-life clip Moffat requested was footage of Hong Kong's Kai Tak Airport, where planes had to navigate right on top of buildings when they came in to land. Of course, these airports were both perfectly safe, and they were great choices to visually communicate the terrifying reality of Missy's showboating. Still, I'd much rather take the TARDIS if that option was available. And that concludes our list. Now, I was going to try and find a clever segue into a different video, but you know what? I'm not going to bother. I'm just going to tell you that you should go check out, at random, 10 terrible Doctor Who ideas that nearly happened. In the meantime, I've been Ellie for Who Culture, and in the words of Riversong herself, goodbye, sweeties.